Our final session now will address the illegal wildlife trade, the third biggest crime in the world after human trafficking and drug smuggling, and these days sadly often linked to terrorism as well. The time for glossing over the illegal wildlife trade has gone. Here to enlighten you as to what must happen to tackle this growing monster of our time, we have Wim Brown of Focused Conservation, Eva Chinoda of Speak Out for Animals, and Nick Home from the Zambezia Conservation Alliance. But before I hand over, you will all be excited to know that following this next session, we shall be announcing the lucky winners of a very unique and unforgettable experience. Prizes generously donated by Coral Camp and Kuzuko Lodge. Thank you so much for your support. Now, Nick, it's over to you.
Thanks very much, Luke. I'm assuming, Sam, if you can just nod that you can hear me. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, depending on where you are in the world. The illegal wildlife trade subject, or IWT as it's known, is an enormous one, and really there's enough material here to discuss it in an entire Kabunga on its own. So, and as Luke pointed out, it sits in the top 3 global criminal activities in the world. We've got 20 minutes, and there's 2 very interesting speakers in Wim Brown and Eva Chinoda. So for the people who are on this Kabunga, who are less familiar with what happens in the illegal wildlife trade, I'm going to do something slightly unusual in that I'm going to tell you what we're not going to talk about. And then Wim and Eva will come in with what they're doing. And I'm only doing this because to try and give those people who are not as familiar, for those who are familiar, my apologies, you do know all this, but for those who are not, I just thought it'd be useful to give you this idea. So, you know, we're not going to be talking about anti-poaching operations by rangers on the front line, who put their lives at risk on a daily basis, and for whom I think you'll be hearing a bit later, we've launched our Ranger Alert campaign. We're not going to discuss the needs of the local communities, and these have been brought up by just about everyone, Ivan and everyone else who's been talking, who coexist with our wildlife in our efforts to eradicate poaching. Human-wildlife conflict is a very definite problem for the local communities that are living so closely with the wildlife, and it's absolutely vital that they are included, as everyone has been saying, in our fight against illegal wildlife trade. We're not going to talk about the complex web of financial transactions that are used by criminal gangs around the world in order to conduct their illegal wildlife trade activities. And you heard from Lord Haig earlier that, you know, huge efforts are underway by organizations such as the Royal Foundation's United Wildlife Task Forces to untangle this web and make the financing of these criminal activities as difficult as possible. We're also not going to discuss today the transport routes and shipping methods used by poachers and the criminal gangs to move their product around the world. Again, there are huge efforts underway to uncover these routes and methods in order to disrupt the flow of illegal wildlife trade as much as possible. We're also not going to discuss the difference between organized criminal poaching for items such as elephant tusks, rhino fawn, and pangolin scales, and subsistence poaching for food. We're not going to discuss the increased use of technology in the fight against IWT, such as drones and other surveillance systems. We're not going to discuss the potential dangers to human health, and this is a huge one, in transmitting zoonotic diseases through illegal wildlife trade, which could conceivably cause pandemics similar to the COVID-19 one. We're not also going to discuss the need for greater cooperation and collaboration and the sharing of information between all players when it comes to combating IWT. This need for collaboration applies internally within individual countries and also transboundary across regions. And it's only through much greater collaboration that we'll be able to have a serious impact on IWT. And the collaboration applies as much to governments as it does to private NGOs, both large and small. And again, this is a huge subject in itself. There's another area we're not going to discuss, and that's prisoner rehabilitation schemes for those people who've been convicted of wildlife crimes. This is a major subject as well, and it's so important to prevent people from reoffending once they've been released from prison. But again, hopefully we'll be able to come onto that at future Kabungas. And you know, we're not going to talk about the fact today that 90% of all African elephants have been killed in the last 100 years, or that an estimated 1 million pangolins have been poached in the last decade, or that we're losing an estimated, I think it's something like 3 rhinos a day, or that there's only around 110,000 giraffe left in Africa. And that's just the iconic species, which doesn't include the other smaller animals, the reptiles and birds, as well as plants and trees that are being trafficked to the edge of extinction. So I could go on, but the point behind what we're not going to talk, as I said, was just to try and help the people who are not as familiar with the conservation and the illegal wildlife trade to just get an idea of how large the subject is. And instead, I'm going to hand you over to 2 pretty incredible people who are doing an awful lot to combat illegal wildlife trade in their own fields. And they'll highlight their roles in this battle and what they're doing and what challenges are for them, so that you can get some ideas to what they and many others on the front line of the fight against illegal wildlife trade face on a daily basis. So we'll start with Wim Brown, who is a former US Drug Enforcement Administration special agent, and he founded Focused Conservation. He's a dedicated investigator into wildlife crimes and has many notable successes under his belt, and I'll leave him to talk about that. Following Wim will be Eva Chinoda, who's a lawyer and founder of the organization Speak Out for Animals, SOFA, and who has committed her life to combating IWT through the courts in Zimbabwe and regionally. So I'll leave both Wim and Eva to tell you more, and we look forward to your questions when we go into the breakout session. So many thanks to you all for listening to what we're not going to talk about, and Wim, over to you to tell us what we are going to be talking about.
Thank you. I want to play a recording. Thank you all. What you just heard was a real undercover call between an illicit wildlife trafficker and an undercover officer referenced doing work in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The importance of the call is that it's when you know you're being successful within your country or your space that you're operating, the bad guys don't want to go there, where they know they'll get locked up, where they'll get prosecuted, and where they can't buy their way out. You know, as noted, my name is Wim Brown. I'm the CEO and founder of Focused Conservation and a partner with United for Wildlife. Thank you to Lord Hague and the Zambezi Conservation Alliance and Nick for the honor to let me speak in front of you about my thoughts about being successful in combating illicit wildlife trafficking. And thank you to Ivan Carter and his insightful speech about conservation and all the other speakers about what we need to do. You know, we all play a role in conservation, and what we do is often not given light. This is the dark side of conservation. You know, first of all, what space do illicit wildlife traffickers and all organized criminal groups like to operate in? It's called ungoverned space, where there is little effective law enforcement, there's poor judicial due process, and there is the ability to easily corrupt the system at all levels, where there is little coordination and sharing of intelligence between law enforcement, NGOs, and others. This is a space where there's a convergence of many bad actors. You know, during my time as a drug enforcement administration, I've operated globally, building international investigations for prosecution, targeting drug trafficking organizations, narco-terrorists, weapons traffickers, and other transnational organized crime groups. You know, when I finished my career as the country attaché in Nairobi, Kenya, I saw the convergence of these networks working with illicit wildlife traffickers, weapons traffickers, and corrupt officials. Targeting IT is targeting all other transnational organized crime. I started Focused Conservation and now was operating as an NGO. You know, I was no longer a US government official. I was no longer what they call a badge carrier, and I didn't have money. You know, during my time, I befriended many NGOs that were operating this space who were funded by other NGOs globally. But these NGOs didn't have the willingness to collaborate or share intelligence, and really just worked in silos. They lacked the law enforcement skills and understanding that the problem is global and not just in the one country that you work in or the conservancy, but it's a global network working transnationally. The problems I found in this conservation space is that corruption in countries with poor governance is exasperated by organized crime. You know, the national law enforcement units that are working in these countries don't have the ability to reach out internationally to their counterparts. And this was especially true when I worked in Kenya and I was working with the narcotics units there. They didn't have the ability to reach out across the border and work with the locals. Mandated environmental authorities, they don't have the full authority oftentimes to investigate and prosecute crimes. And so you have the Directorate of Criminal Investigations or the National Police who are actually organizing these big investigations, and they're not collaborating with each other. International NGOs have a tendency to protect the knowledge and they don't share the information. Smaller NGOs focus on their national partners and typically are unable to operate transnationally. And one big thing is counter wildlife trafficking responses are not being led by law enforcement professionals, but by conservationists. And that's nothing wrong with them, but there has to be that experience that goes with it. And oftentimes the training that is provided by many NGOs or governments is just applying training to individuals, and then they go back to their corrupt units and they don't have the ability to apply it. So one of the things that we've done is created a corrupt-free space by creating wildlife crime units. And often the judicial system just doesn't understand the importance of the problem and the value of wildlife. Oftentimes it's just jail or a fine. So the solution, as Lord Haig noted, we need to do it together. We need to target organized wildlife crime networks with best practices, law enforcement methods, and with partners. We need to work with NGOs such as Evers, who you're going to hear about, who has the professional experience and know-how to affect the judicial system. We need to strengthen our coordination and capacity for transnational action, deploying law enforcement professionals with experience tackling international illicit wildlife trafficking networks who have the contacts globally. And we need to build wildlife crime units. When it comes to the intelligence and the information that we have, effective action against wildlife trafficking networks requires a coordinated response. There needs to be a cultural shift from the need to know to the responsibility to share of actionable intelligence. This enhances operational coordination and law enforcement effectiveness. And there needs to be a better focus on strengthening the information systems that are out there, the analysis of the information and how we disseminate that. We also need to build alliances to share and work together. Use the strengths of your counterparts. In other words, you may operate in a country that has poor judicial due process, but your neighboring partner that sits in the other country is very good at that. Collaborate with them, draw your targets across into the international boundary and have them affect law enforcement and the judicial due process on them. This is often what we did when I was in Kenya, because the Kenyans, they love to put Tanzanians in jail, and the Tanzanians love to put Kenyans in jail, and thus you solve a lot of your problems. And also, what's going on with the Royal Foundation, United for Wildlife, we need to pull in the private sector. They need to share in the investigation, and they need to be given feedback about what they're doing regarding to the information that they're sharing. At the end of the day, these individuals from the private sector go home and they go, I saved an elephant or a rhino or other species. We need to surround ourselves with good people and we will be successful. So going back to the recording you heard at the beginning, how did Tanzania get to the position where traffickers feared operating in Tanzania? It was because there are NGOs operating there who understand the importance of sharing intelligence, working together. There was a desire by mandated authorities, specifically several individuals who had the will to tackle the problem, to address and recognize that they needed to improve. That phone call was an example of this. This was an investigation that involved 3 countries, 1 international partner, a couple independent NGOs, all who've shared their experience, who shared their personnel to support investigations, and who shared intelligence and worked towards one goal in combating these networks. Being successful requires cooperation at all levels. You can't do it alone. Your problem isn't yours, but it's others as well. It's all about working together. And thanks for this opportunity to let me speak in front of you. amongst all of you, and I'm proud to be here. I put a small piece of the puzzle in here, and I'm happy to work with anybody at any time. And thank you. Nick, I'll turn it over to Ever.
Thank you so much, Wim, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening. So my name is Eva Bimbai Chinoda. I'm a lawyer based in Zimbabwe, founder and executive director for Speak Out for Animals. So I'll just share a little bit of what we have been doing and what we are doing in the fight against illegal wildlife trade. So Speak Out for Animals is an animal, can we go to the next slide, first slide? Second slide. So Speak Out for Animals is an organization which is mainly comprised of animal lawyers who are dedicated to protecting wildlife through the legal system. It was my observation that a lot is being done in the field, but there wasn't much being done in the courts, or there wasn't a lot of intellectual investment in as far as conservation is concerned. So that's when we decided to come up with SOFA. So our thematic areas involve case monitoring, where we receive information from the police, or Zimpax investigators, or even private investigators from conservancies. They give us the information when they do their arrests, and from their arrests, we then work with the police from drafting charges, taking the accused person to court, opposing bail, sending aggravating information to the magistrates, and lobbying for a stiff penalty. We are also involved in trainings, where we're also involved in advocacy and lobbying, and we're also involved in student chapters, where we have the Great Zimbabwe University chapter and the University of Zimbabwe student chapter. And also we are involved in a lot of literature development, wildlife law literature development, because we realize that there is a gap. The laws are there, they're not known, they're not codified. So every single year we are in the habit of developing literature that is being used by different law enforcement agents to fight illegal wildlife trade. Next. So what have we achieved? So our organization is only 3 years old. We've been very fortunate enough that we've worked with people who appreciate our work and value our work, the likes of Zambezi Society and the likes of IAPF, Akashinga. Those are some of the organizations we've worked with, and we've also worked with anti-trafficking specialists from Save Valley. These are the local conservancies or organizations that we've really worked with on the ground, and we also got funding from DEFRA to do the case monitoring. So what we've achieved through this case monitoring is a reduction in the number of cases that are being brought to court, because we make sure that whenever a poacher is taken to court, especially for animals that involve specially protected animals such as the pangolin or ivory or any specially protected animal, we make sure that they get the 9-year mandatory jail term. We've also seen expediency in court as a result of our case monitoring, because we are complementing what the police and the prosecutor do in administering justice in as far as cases are concerned. We've also developed literature, which is the Wildlife Law Code. It's just a simple it's just a simple book where any layman person can read about the laws that exist in Zimbabwe as far as protecting wildlife is concerned. We've also worked on the Rapid Reference Guide with assistance and help from Space for Giants. This is a prosecution toolkit that has been distributed in every court in Zimbabwe, and that is the guideline on charges and sentences and penalties to expect when dealing with a wildlife case. We've also compiled what we call a wildlife law code. In Zimbabwe, we have 10 different pieces of legislation that protect wildlife. So this leads to frustration and confusion. So we decided to just put all these different pieces of legislation into one book, which we call the Wildlife Law Code. The National Prosecuting Authority requested for 52 copies, and we just distributed them to the copies officially. So these books are found in every court as library copies, but we hope to even give magistrates and prosecutors copies that they can use whilst they're doing their work. We've also achieved training of students, investigators, prosecutors, magistrates, and parliamentarians. Why? Our main target is mostly those who are involved with the law. So we've trained 20 investigating officers so far, 80 prosecutors, 15 magistrates, and as for parliamentarians, we last trained them sometime in 2017. We haven't done much lately. We've also done a lobbying for the wild dog. In Zimbabwe, the wild dog was classified as a problem animal, but we lobbied and worked with the government, and now it's regarded as a specially protected animal, meaning any offense that involves a wild dog attracts a mandatory jail term of 9 years. We've also signed an MOU with the National Prosecuting Authority, which enables us now to prosecute wildlife cases as an organization. We haven't started, but we're still trying to put our work in order because it's a lot that comes into prosecuting wildlife cases. But I think that is something that we regard as an achievement, because the ability to prosecute means you have control of the case and you can actually determine the outcome of the case. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of one region, the one where we work with IAPF and ZAMSOC, where we've done case monitoring from 2018, 2019, and 2020 cases. So I'll just give an example of maybe the 2020 statistics, where 111 operations were done, but it led to 202 arrests. And also the offenses that were crafted from the 112 offenses were 133. What this means is you find that an operation might be one, but in most cases we have 2, 3, or 4 accused persons that are involved in one operation. And we have 4 people that can potentially be charged. But however, we do not just prefer one charge, for example, illegal possession or trapping. We use what we call the full range approach, where we check whether there are other offenses that a person could have potentially, a crime that a person could have potentially committed. So instead of just the wildlife offense, we charge them potentially with the firearms charge. We can use the customs, we can use immigration. So we just try to look like, is this person in Zimbabwe legally? No, so let's use the immigration. Is this person paying taxes? No, so let's use the tax, the Tax Act. So we use the full range of law approach so that it becomes more deterrent and not just rely on the Parks and Wildlife Act. So you find that there are different penalties that have been given to the different offenders that I'm talking about. Next slide, please. So what we are doing as an organization is we are really fighting and aiming to create an anti-poaching syndicate. And our work starts primarily with law students. I've realized as a person who went to law school and graduated from law school without even being exposed to what is called wildlife law or the value of wildlife, I felt it was important for us to introduce wildlife law as a module in the law schools. So we've been officially approved to introduce wildlife law as an academic module for the first time in Zimbabwe at Great Zimbabwe Law School, and we'll be starting next term. The same students that we are targeting are the ones that will become the judges, the magistrates, and the prosecutors. So we feel it's important to catch them young so that when they go and sit on the bench, they are not taken by surprise. They are not confused what the value of a wathob or impala is, or why people are nagging them to push cases and be expedient when they're dealing with all these wildlife cases. And also the reason why we're targeting this law enforcement chain and the judiciary is because I'm really, our desire is to make them understand the value of wildlife, the intrinsic value of wildlife and the extrinsic value of wildlife. Once they understand the value of wildlife, their attitude in prosecuting, adjudicating, and arresting is totally different. We'll get cooperation from that. So this is the anti-poaching syndicate that we are building and that we're trying to strengthen. Last slide, as I round off. So the problems we're encountering as an NGO that is mostly relying on the legal side is we have lack of strict enforcement of the existing laws. We have fines that are being given to people that are committing offenses. I'll give the example of the famous monkeys case. The DRC poachers that came with those 34 monkeys in Zimbabwe were fined to $20 per charge, which means that their fine was only $20 for illegally trafficking those monkeys from DRC into Zimbabwe. That is too lenient. And the magistrates can only work within the range of the law. So what we are doing is to lobby to say, let's change the law and make it strict so that the magistrates can only work in the strict measures or in the strict confines of the laws that exist. We also have the loops in the Parks and Wildlife Act. And I'm happy that the authority is working on reforming the act. We have what we call a mango effect case. So sometime in 2019, because of the way the laws were drafted, we had a clever lawyer, a defense lawyer, who applied at the court and contested the sending of an accused person to jail for 9 years. So the 9-year mandatory sentence for the specially protected animals was reversed, and we saw more than 25 accused persons who were supposed to serve 9 years being released back home, because the offense had been reduced from 9 years to a fine or to 3 years. So that's a challenge. And then the others are just the generic problems of low level or first level investigations and corruptions within the system. So I think that's it from me and the work that we're doing. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Eva, and thank you, Wim, and thank you, Nick. The work that you all do needs extreme courage and conviction. Your passion, your actions, and your results are crucial and so appreciated. Now, I'd like to tell everybody that the ZCA has teamed up with Commonwealth Music to launch the Ranger Alert campaign. We aim to raise much needed funds to support the Ranger life insurance in the Zambezia region. Please enjoy watching the following video. There are roughly 3,000 rangers in the Zambezia region that urgently need life insurance support. We're targeting to raise 1 million British pounds to make an impact, and we can only do this with widespread support globally. Do visit the Zambezia.com Ranger Alert page to find out more, and please, may I ask you all to spread the word. I would like to thank all our speakers today for committing your valuable time and passion towards this great cause for conservation. A massive thanks to all of you in the audience for being such an important part of this inaugural Kabunga. Please continue to participate in our future Kabungas. In particular, I would like to thank the Connections team for believing in this vision with us and partnering with us to power this effort. We aim to grow this collaboration on all fronts going forwards. I will now hand over to Sam, who will take us through what happens next. Please don't go anywhere just yet if you don't have to.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you. What an amazing session. It's been incredible. And thanks again to all our speakers. So on behalf of Connections team, we want to wholeheartedly thank all our guest speakers. We are happy to be asked to support such a worthy cause. The work that everyone on this webinar puts into conservation is admirable and essential for the future on so many levels. A special word goes to the team at the Zambezia Conservation Alliance for formulating this concept and being the driving force behind Conservation Kabunga. As always, your ongoing support and trust in Connections is truly humbling, and we are very, very grateful to you and want to thank you for your continued fight for protection and conservation in Africa. So this does mark the end of our official ConnecTALKS program, but first it is time for us to, for our exciting giveaway. During this session, we have been collecting everyone's names and has added it to all our guests to a lucky dip generator. So I'm hoping Jürgen and Katharina are on the call. I believe I've seen you. So I would like to actually introduce you both and from your wonderful camps, Corona River Camp and Kazuko Lodge, who have provided these fantastic prizes. Just to tell you a little bit more, and more importantly, who the lucky winners are. So, Jürgen, would you like to start first and share more details on this fabulous prize and who our lucky winner is?
Of course, thank you very much, Sam, and thank everybody for joining this fantastic conference. I'm a bit overwhelmed actually about the quality of the presentations and the amount of people attending, which is very encouraging for nature conservation in general and tourism also, of course. I must admit, in the last 5 months, I spent 3.5 months in the bush in Botswana trying to separate elephants from people. So you tend to lose touch with reality a little bit from the outside world, and this fantastic conference almost disappeared over the horizon. And I must thank Maggie and Luke to pulling it back in my view, because I wouldn't have wanted to miss this for the world. Yes, like I said, I'm Jürgen Albertsen. I'm Director of Terra Conservancy Operations and the Africa Experience, and we own Coral River Camp and Coral Island Camp in the central Tule area in Botswana. And more important, the companies are operating companies, but they're owned by Timbo Africa Foundation in the Netherlands. And you would wonder what is a foundation doing with 2 full-blown commercial operations? Well, like we see in these presentations, what is very important is what can you do as a lodge for your environment and what do you contribute? So the foundation is said literally every money, every dollar, every euro, every rent or pula we make has to go back to nature conservation. So there is no profit sharing for shareholders. Literally every contribution from a guest literally goes back into nature conservation. So I'm very happy to say for myself that these presentations confirmed that we're more or less on the right way in terms of what we're trying to achieve with nature conservation. And like Maggie already said, and she was the person who spent almost a week at our lodge 2 weeks ago, we've just been building a 30-kilometer fence to separate the community farming areas from the wildlife areas. And the effect is immediate. It's unbelievable to see. It pulls people together. The people are harvesting their mealies, their mice again, and we don't have poaching anymore. Literally stopped right away. And it proves that is so correctly said by all the speakers. You cannot have tourism and nature conservation if you don't look after the people who live in those areas first. Only then you will get the buy-in, and only then will you be able to pull off these beautiful tourism operations. And it is therefore, I'm very proud actually that I can give away this prize, and that I hope that what we stand for as a foundation, by creating big corridors for game to move, protecting rhinos, reintroduction rhinos, and most important, protecting the communities around us, that we can show this to the people who come to our lodge, so that the USPs are not just the big five. One of our major USPs is see what we're doing and see what we're achieving and see what your money does for good things in this particular area. And I realize we're quite far away from the Zambezi River, but if you look very closely on the map, you can see it's only 1,000 kilometers. And if you very closely look at the map, you will see that all these big catchment areas are connected to each other. If you want to protect elephants, you need to let them move. If you want to protect leopards, you must give them habitat. And if you want to make sure that people can survive properly, you must give them space to do what they need to do. So yes, we are very proud. And I'm very proud to announce, therefore, that the winner, and I had no say in how this worked, but Sam had a number generator, he said. So he pulled out of his hi-hat the name of Miss Tyra Schubert for the winner as for our 3-night stay in our beautiful lodge in Botswana. And I hope that she's going to have a great time, and I'll make sure I'll be there myself to show her around, and the partner she's coming with, to see what we're doing in our area.
Congratulations, Tyra. Congratulations. I'm hoping you're still on the call. I can see your name still there.
Hello. Thank you.
Amazing.
It's so thrilling. Thank you so much. It's been a brilliant day. It's just been so inspiring, and I'm even more inspired now.
Well, we hope to see you soon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And Katharina, are you on the call? I have seen your name. Please say hello if you are.
Afternoon. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Did you want to tell everyone a little bit about your amazing prize and who the winner is?
Yes, afternoon, everybody. And like Jürgen, I'm also awestruck and amazed and honored to be on this platform with you this afternoon. And thank you to Maggie. She's doing an awesome job as well, and for introducing us to this initiative. Well, the prize is 2 nights and 3 days at our 5-star lodge, but that's just walls and facilities. That's not the heart of the business. And Kazuka was founded as a community upliftment project, and it was founded by our main funder, Dr. Quintan, and Inquo Investments is our holding company. And it's been the first social venture company to ever be listed on the London Stock Exchange. So people investing with them are directly making a difference in conservation and community upliftment. And as you would have seen in our prize, when you visit us, you're going to visit various different conservation projects that we are part of and that we're passionate about. One of them are speckworm, another is cheetah wilding, and the biggest one is making a difference in the community where we are built. We situated very much in the middle of nowhere in the Eastern Cape, bordering the northern section of the Greater Addo Elephant National Park. And we were built here in the middle of nowhere, specifically for the community of the Somerset East region. So it is just so special being part of a bigger picture and a property that makes a difference in both conservation and community. So just on our prize, can I go ahead and announce the winner?
You may.
All right, fantastic. Before I do that, you're also welcome to go and have a look at our website. And if you wonder how to spell Kazuko, it's K-U-Z-U-K-O, and it's kazuko.com. That's our website. And we are also managed by Legacy Hotels and Resorts. So you can pop onto their website as well and have a look at our property there. So our winner this afternoon of our 3-day 2-night prize at Kazuko is Richard Lloyd Morgan. Congratulations, Richard.
Congratulations, Richard. Are you on the call? I did see your name.
I am, and it is completely undeserved. Completely undeserved. I've been involved with conservation in a very sort of dilettante way for decades. My partner was a conservation wildlife vet, working with gorillas in Rwanda and so on. So I've been obsessed with it for a very long time. But and I haven't been, well, I've been on conservation things in South Africa and Namibia and so on for quite a lot, but not enough. Thank you so much. That is incredibly generous of you.
Wonderful. We look forward to welcoming you.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll be in touch.
We will.
I'm very, very blessed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Jürgen and Katharina, again for those fantastic prizes, and congratulations to our 2 winners today. I hope you have an amazing time. It's honestly well deserved. So now it is time for our social.